Okay, well, we're right on 12:30, and I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar, Surveying Your Clients for Better Customer Satisfaction. This webinar will be presented by Chantel Schumacher, who is the Regional Sales Director for ClickDimensions. And for those of you who don't know, ClickDimensions is a marketing automation and email tool that integrates into Microsoft Dynamics CRM. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to attend, and we'd just like to run through a couple of housekeeping items. So the first housekeeping item is every attendee is muted. So if you have any questions, please enter them in the question section on the right-hand side, and these will be answered at the end of the session. Any unanswered questions will be answered via email after the event. And also we'll be recording this webinar, and we will email you a copy of the recording. Typically we put it up on our YouTube channel, so we'll send you a link to that recording over the next couple of days. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand you across to Chantel to start the session.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for the introduction. I really appreciate that. So I'm Chantel Schumacher. I'm the Regional Sales Director here at ClickDimensions in Asia Pacific and Southeast Asia. The topics that I want to cover with everybody today are how to create survey questions and surveys, how to see those results inside of Dynamics CRM, but more importantly, how to measure results in CRM after those surveys go out. So for those of you that are not familiar with ClickDimensions, I'm going to be bringing you inside of Dynamics CRM 2016 today. We are a marketing and marketing automation solution built exclusively for Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So everything that you see me create, execute on, and feed into CRM are all going to be happening inside of the CRM database. There's a couple of things that I just want to do to set stage a little bit is why you're going to survey, right? So one is, of course, to uncover answers and to find out what kind of feedback are you hearing from clients. What things are you hearing after events? There's many different things that you use surveys for, so they could be employee surveys, they could be customer satisfaction surveys, they could be marketing surveys, and it's awesome to uncover those answers in an unbiased fashion. It's also great to evoke discussion internally. What things have you been hearing, right, after those surveys go out? And also externally, that's a great topic of conversation. When you can see those surveys coming in, who's answering those surveys, how they are answering those questions, those are discussions that can happen afterwards to help improve business process and things to make things better for the client and to help improve process internally. There's many decisions that you can base off of unbiased information, right? So it's really good to base decisions on objective information. What kind of objective feedback are you receiving from survey results? And what kind of processes can we put in place based on how people are answering questions, right? A lot of times, you guys know, as you're talking to people and, you know, they're explaining things to you, you may have personal feelings in that. So it's good to set up some processes. Maybe you ask somebody an overall satisfaction rating, and you have just streamlined that everybody that gives you an 8 or higher, you may have a different action that happens than everybody that gives you maybe a 5 and under rate in the way that case was handled or the way the event went. So we'll talk a little bit about that stuff today. Also, it's really important to be able to compare results. Compare results of your, we'll just use an event, for example. Maybe you ask everybody if they're going to come to your event next year, and 80% of the attendees this year said yes. But next year, when you ask that same question, maybe only 70% said that they're coming the next year. Or maybe it's actually higher and 85% said they're coming the next year. It's good to find out why. It's great to be able to put in skip logic and ask further questions, further qualifying questions, and bounce people around in surveys based on how they're answering questions. And also to be able to see that over time and how people are responding and as you're basing business decisions off of those surveys, right? So we'll talk a little bit about all of that today. Again, I'm going to bring you inside of Dynamics CRM 2016, and we're going to be demoing out of that today. So I'm literally going to be creating everything inside of CRM, and I'm going to show you how everything feeds into CRM in real time and what reports and stuff come out of the box. But the wonderful thing about Dynamic CRM is that it's a very customizable platform. So, you know, how can you create your own views and charts and fun stuff with that data and what that looks like as you're building process out. So without further ado, I'm going to pull over Dynamic CRM 2016. So as you can see here, I'm going to actually be working out of a couple of areas inside of CRM. So our entities for the survey module feed into a couple of areas inside of Dynamic CRM. So Click Dimensions brings a lot of different entities in here. So not just survey functionality, there's many other things as you can see. But we're going to spend our time on surveys today. So we'll be spending some time here with posted surveys and survey answers. So where do those feed into the CRM database? The other place that we're going to be spending our time right away is in the settings area. So we're going to take a look first, how do you create survey questions and how do you create these surveys? And what types of things can I do with those, right? What types of questions can I create and all of that. So we're going to start our time in settings. There's an area called web content, and that's where we create the surveys. The survey questions themselves have their own little entity here, and so we're going to start off the demo there today. So let's kind of look at how these are built first, right? Let's start at the foundation, and then I'm going to go in and show you how these feed in and what kind of reports and stuff come out of the box, and then how you can action on that data afterwards. So I'm going to start out with survey questions, and once I build a question, the really cool thing is those will be in my drop downs in my surveys, right? So I can choose those in future. You can see there's many actual different types of survey questions you can have. So you could have a 1 to 10 star rating, you could have radio buttons, check boxes, you can have free text. Depending on the types of questions that you want to build out, you'll have those options. To create survey questions is really like any other CRM entity. I can go in here and name this what I'd like. So, you know, I could ask somebody, how do you rate the conference, right? Or you guys today, how do you rate the webinar? And maybe I'll set up different actions depending on how you respond to that. So you can name the question differently than what you actually want the question to be, but I'm just going to use it the same. And so I'll go in here, how do you rate the webinar? And then I get my options of what types of question do I want this to be. Do I want it to be radio buttons? And if so, do I want it to be like great or bad? Do I want it to actually be something like a 10-star rating? So they're going to give us a scale, right, of I like the 10 being great and 1 being not so great. So you can play around with the different types of formatting of the questions that you want. Once you go in here and you create these questions, again, they're going to be in your options when you go to create the surveys. You can put categories around these. So a lot of times we have different types of questions for our customer satisfaction surveys, right, or training surveys versus a marketing survey. So it's nice to be able to categorize them so you can group them together easily. There's different things you can do around that too. So one of the first things I'm going to do here is just kind of show you how these all tie together. So if I go into web content, and this is where it's going to show you how you can build surveys and how you can put some automated actions on the backside. So a survey is done just like another CRM record. So I can go in here, I can name my survey what I want. So I'm just going to name this one Chantel Test. I choose here what I want to build. So there's different types of web content you can build. So you can build landing pages to put the surveys on if you want. Surveys can be embedded multiple ways, you guys. So common things that we see like is a survey going out in an email. But just keep in mind you can also embed like a survey as an iframe if you want to put it on a landing page or on a page on your website. And I'll show you that too here shortly. The other thing you'll see is you can tie it to your domain. So we'll do that first. And then what this is right here, this create new visitor, is you can actually decide if maybe you do have a survey that's on your website, right? If somebody new creates that survey, do you want them coming into your CRM database as a lead or as a contact? So you actually have control over that. Another really important thing with this is you actually can tie this to a native CRM campaign. And for those of you that use campaigns in CRM, it's a great way to be able to tie everything together back to one campaign source. And that's important to me is, even from a marketing perspective, if I'm looking at conversions and stuff, but there's many different types of campaigns we may be doing. And so you'll have those options to tie it back to a campaign source if you want. The nice thing with surveys too is because posted surveys and survey questions are entities in CRM, when those come in, those are also that CRM data you can run workflows off of and tie them to a case in CRM, and so we can talk about some of that too. But we'll continue with the design here first. So if I go into design this, you'll see that there's a designing button up here at the top. All of the surveys have responsive design built in out of the box. You can turn that off if you want to. You can clone surveys. When I go in here, what this does, it actually will pull up all of my questions that I have right here on the right-hand side. So I can go in and take a look at the different types of survey questions and decide, what types of questions do I want to ask in this survey? Based on how they're responding to certain questions, do I want to actually move them around in the survey to different questions or different pages based on that? I can do those types of things. So if I go in here, one of the things I may ask is, we'll just grab one of them for example. I may ask somebody a question that says, will you be attending WPC in Houston? So will you be attending this event in Houston? And depending on how people answer this question, so this question actually has a number of answers to it. So they may say yes, they may say no, or they may say maybe. And based on how they're answering those questions, I may want to move them around in the survey differently, right? So I'm going to just put some page breaks in here and show you some things when I start to say this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this my required question. So I may want to go in here and just put in my required fields. I can add in skip logic. So if they actually say that they are coming to my event, I may skip them around in my survey, right? So they're saying yes, I'm going to actually skip them to this different question in my survey. So this allows you to put in skip logic. If they're answering yes, no, maybe, all of those types of things can determine where they go in the survey next. You're going to have formatting options on the back side, so you'll be able to adjust just what the formatting looks like in general. But let's just kind of skip around. So one thing, say I did skip them to page 2 if they said yes and I pick a specific question. So two things happened here. One, I made my question required. So you see the little red star here. And then the other, this L, tells me that there's skip logic behind that question. And then it's going to skip them to page 2. And so based on that person saying yes, I'm going to pull in my next set of questions that I want to happen, right, based on the people that said they were coming. So there's a lot of things you can do here, but I'll just talk a little bit about components and stuff next. So there's other things you can also add in here, like maybe you want to put in section titles, or you want to pull in some HTML, you want to put in some CAPTCHA. That's all great. Up here in the top, you can also put in your confirmation text, right, when somebody hits submit. You can rename any of these buttons to whatever you want. So sometimes we see people put submit or next or complete, or you can name the buttons, you can position the buttons in different spots. Your embedding options are right here as well, so you're actually going to be able to embed this as a link or as an iframe. There's going to be multiple ways that you can embed this, and so that's all right here. So when I click on this, it's going to automatically generate a link for me, but I can also go in here and make a custom URL, or I can also embed it as a widget if I'm going to put it behind a secure site. So that's just a little bit of like the general nuances with creating a survey. Now the power comes in when you start to do things on the back side. So what happens on the back end of the survey when you guys are going to build this? Well, if somebody actually completes my survey, maybe I've been targeting them in an email campaign to, it's a customer satisfaction survey after the case was closed, and if they hadn't completed that yet, we had tried to target them to complete it a couple of times, right? Well, when they finally complete it, you maybe want them removed from the marketing list so they don't get that communication anymore. Maybe when they complete your survey, you want a task or phone call created in CRM because you want somebody on your team to physically pick up the phone and call them and say, thank you so much for completing your survey. We see, you know, that came in and want to thank you so much for your feedback. Great. So you can do those types of things. You can have email notifications go out, so they can go out to teams, they can go out to individuals. You can have campaign responses and stuff created right inside of Dynamics CRM. And then you can also do things like, you know, just have a nice autoresponder that goes back to them right away with an email, just thanking them for taking the time to complete the survey. So those are some of the things you can do from a design perspective. And then, like I mentioned, there's multiple ways you can embed it. So depending on how you're targeting people to complete your surveys, the next thing that's really cool is then those all feed into the CRM database, and that's what I'm going to show you next. The other nice thing as well, you guys, is you can have master templates. So like if, say you create a survey once, you can clone web content. So if you want to clone it and just switch some of the questions out, you guys can do that too, so you aren't starting over. We try and make it just very simple and easy, so you'll have those things available to you as well. Now, where these come in is in an area called posted surveys, right? So if I go in here, I can literally see every single survey that's coming in and the different types of surveys. So they could be, you know, it could be a customer satisfaction survey. It could be somebody asking, you know, we're asking things about our academy trainings. And so as these come in, you can see how they're time-stamped, and that's all coming into the database. The other thing that's important, like I had mentioned before, is the fact that you can also see the survey answers separately. So that's important to me because I'll have views for that. Like maybe I want to just take a look at, you know, all the overall support satisfaction questions. I can see that coming into the database, and I can look at those questions specifically. And then also, as I'm thinking about business process and running workflows and things off of how those questions are being answered, I can do that as well. So keep in mind, you can pull any of this data, you can create your views. This is all CRM data now. So if I want to see, you know, a dashboard with all of the different ways that my questions are being answered or specific things that are important to me, I can do that. If I want to just pull things nicely into my chart, my view, also into reports, I can do that too. So I'm going to just show you some of the reports and stuff here first that come out of the box, so that you can see that. So let's just take a look at a general one. I'm going to go in and actually take a look at like a newsletter survey here, for example. So this is a survey that we have out here that came in, and it's just asking people some general questions like, would you like to receive more detailed information? What's your favorite Click to Mentions feature? And those types of things. Would you like a past newsletter, and which one? And so they get to choose. When this information came in, it was actually tied to Megan Berner, and Megan is a contact in our database, and the way that it tied it to Megan is that it tied it based on her email address to her record in CRM. So if I go into Megan's contact record, I can actually see every single survey Megan's ever filled out. I can see every question she's answered, and I can see how she's answered those questions. So that's important to me, to be able to see that feedback right for my clients. As I'm touching base with so-and-so, I can see, okay, they have filled out a number of surveys. What's their satisfaction been with us in the past, and set up actions. And actions, like I said, can be automated with workflow processes, but you can also set up manual actions that you want to do based off that. Okay, so there's a couple of things that come out of the box, so I'm just going to talk about that here. There is a survey report, and so if I go in here, what this does is it actually just gives me a really nice aggregate, right? So how are people answering the questions? I want to be able to look at this. I want to be able to export this and send this in Excel to different people as well, so that it's nice and easy if they want to see, you know, what the results are happening with our August newsletter survey. That stuff is just going to come right out of the box for me, which is really, really powerful. So there's lots of different things you guys can do with that. Again, you're going to be able to trigger information based on how the data is feeding into the CRM database, and you'll be able to see that specifically just to based off of any contact or lead as well, the information based on that. So those are some of the big things on when you think about it coming in real time. This is used a lot from our marketing team here. We see that with our clients, with their marketing teams, but it's also used hugely with our customer team. We use it for customer satisfaction. We monitor that after tickets are closed, so it could be from the service side of the business to help us improve process and to monitor that and how survey questions are being answered over time. The other thing, so there's many different ways that we'll see people use this. We also use it as well when we're surveying employees, and so we a lot of times like to see that data, have that data also in CRM, and so as we're tracking different things that comes into the database. So those are some of the main things with Click2Mention surveys. Again, you can put all kinds of automated processes on the end so that if you do have somebody automatically added to a marketing list or removed from a marketing list based on survey answers, then you can start to run them. Say they get added to a marketing list based on completing the survey. Maybe you want to send them down an automation based on that. And so that's where you start getting into other automated fields that are outside of CRM workflow where you can start automating a number of processes, and that really gets into a different feature set of Click2Mention, so I won't really spend much time there, but I just want to show you the possibilities here really quick. So you could have somebody that completed your survey, and because they completed your survey and said that they really enjoyed your event, you're maybe from that point going to send them down an automation, and based on what they do with that automation, you're going to start to trigger them down different fields. So what I mean by that is there's triggers and series, and so somebody could have been automatically added to the marketing list, and then based on what they do with communications, they're going to be sent brochures, for example, or they're going to do different things with the communications afterwards. So this lets you start automating processes once all this data is in CRM based on what people are doing. So those are the main things that I wanted to discuss today, just to give everybody a little sneak peek over your lunch hour of how the surveys are native in CRM. So when you're thinking about tying in customer service, sales, marketing, everything into one single database, there's a lot of different things you can do as you're building out seamless process. And surveys, like I mentioned, can be used for a number of departments, and of course that can all be done out of CRM. So with that, I am going to just open it up for questions.
Okay, just a reminder to everyone, if you have questions, just pop them over in the question panel in the GoToWebinar session. There we have one question here. Is there a limit to the number of questions you can set up in a survey?
There's not a limit.
There's no limit at all?
There's no limit at all, and they can actually set up as many pages as they'd like in a survey as well. So that's important as you're thinking about, like, you know, as you're setting up skip logic and you want to skip people around in surveys and keep getting more complex in that survey depending on how they're answering questions. You can keep them moving along through it.
Okay. And here's another question. What's the benefit of having those surveys within CRM as opposed to using a third-party survey tool?
The nice thing about having it native in CRM is visibility, one. So you think of all the people that are working out of your CRM system. It's important to be able to go into my contact record, Chantel Schumacher, and see, has Chantel ever completed a survey? We're targeting her to complete the survey. We know she's had a lot of support cases. Has she given us feedback? How do, you know, what are the temperaments that we're seeing? Is it, it's to have that visibility all in one single database instead of a separate system. So that, you know, maybe marketing is targeting somebody for a certain survey, but the people that are working customer service or working sales, they need to see that visibility, and they're able to see that visibility in real time as it's brought into dynamic CRM. And it's also to be able to set up seamless process based off of that, right? So if you are asking somebody, what is your overall satisfaction, and they give you a 10, you may want to notify a director of that, like, hey, these people are really happy, whereas somebody's giving you a score of a 3, you may want to notify a director of support, like this needs to be escalated and followed up on by management right away to see what we can improve better.
Okay. There's a question, how do I publish a survey if you've got a survey up there? How do I remove the survey page once it's been published?
So once you publish a survey, when you publish a survey and it's published out there publicly, it's going to be up there until you go in and you actually delete that survey out of the system and get it out of there. Then it won't render anymore. But there is a publish button for you to publish it out there when you're ready to publish it. But as you start to design, you'll be able to start to go into the link right away and do some stuff. And then at the end of the survey, there's actually a button that says publish.
Okay. And I think we talked briefly just at the before the webinar started, Chantal, about some of the new features that you're looking to introduce as part of a roadmap for surveys in Click to Mention.
Yes, so there's...
Should be able to take us through a couple of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things that are coming in around from a styling perspective into surveys. So let me just show you something here really cool and really quickly. There's an area in here that we have currently, like in our forms, that we're putting into surveys come July. So for any of you currently using Click to Mentions, there's what we call a code editor. And so if I'm thinking about adding in my CSS or my JavaScript, I can do this today in forms, but we are adding that into surveys. So I'll show you, and this will be ready by the July release. So if I go in here and actually, forgive me here, and just make a form really quick so you can see what it looks like in a form today, because it's not released out to surveys yet. Okay, so if we go in here, I'll show you what I mean. So this is actually going to allow you to apply your styling and everything right in here, which is really powerful. So our form editor is very similar to the survey editor. Instead of survey questions, form fields on the right-hand side. So any of you that are used to using our form editor are probably very familiar with that. But the other thing that you'll see being added into surveys is going to be a code editor. So let me just save this really quick so I can go into it. So say you pull over a field and you want to make the styling look the same, this will be added into the code editor. So I like the ability, this is what my form looks like, but say it's a survey question, I like the ability of being able to actually go into the CSS and everything from right here instead of having to do it from the source code.
So having that sort of flexibility will allow you to do things like have a progress bar and like a save and return feature. Is that sort of thing you can do with the code editor?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another question here. If someone submits a response on the survey, does it always create a lead or a contact? If they already exist in CRM, what happens then? Do they get created twice?
No, it doesn't, and that's actually an excellent question. So when a survey comes in, what we do is we query the CRM database, and we're going to look to see if they're already in there based on email address as the unique identifier. If we find a contact or lead with that email address inside of CRM, that survey is going to post to their existing record. So that way, for example, in the example that I showed you with Megan, I can go into Megan's record and see how many surveys Megan's ever submitted, how she's ever answered them. And we don't want to be creating duplicate accounts in your CRM every time somebody's filling out a survey, right? So that's an excellent question. Now, if we don't find them in the CRM database based off of email address, it can create a new lead or it can create a new contact, and that's up to you if you'd like them coming in as leads so you can qualify or disqualify as appropriate. But yes, great question.
Okay. Look, I'm conscious of time here, so if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to your account manager directly, and they can endeavour to answer them. But I'd like to thank you again for your time. And if you're interested in learning more about how you can use ClickDimension to survey your clients, as I mentioned earlier, you can definitely contact your account manager and they'll be able to help you out there. I'd also like to take the opportunity to promote an upcoming event that we have as well that may be appropriate to marketing type people, and that's an event that we have next week in Sydney and Melbourne around SharePoint 2016, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can use SharePoint and an internet platform to improve your marketing, communication and collaboration. So if you're interested in that, then I'd encourage you to register for that event as well. But again, I'd like to thank Chantal for her time and also thank all of you for your time in sitting in on this webinar today, and I hope you have a good day for the rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.